Next, so Hydro-Quebec has asked for its rates to increase, and that is from 2014. Now, the increase they've asked for is 3.4% a year. If you're in an average-sized apartment, that would amount to about $1.70 on your hydro bill. Small house, that would be about $4.30. This is per month. And if you have a large house, it'd be about $8 a month. And by the way, critics say those estimates are a bit misleading, and actually it would cost more on the bill because the increase hydro gets may be as high as 5.4%. But in any case, why is a rate increase necessary when we've just had one? Well, one of the main reasons cited is that the Parti Québécois government decided in May to greenlight the production of 800 megawatts of new wind-generated electricity, and that means hydro is forced to buy it and you have to pay for it. Wind power is not that cheap. In a moment, you'll hear from someone who thinks that it is not necessary, not a great idea. Jean-Frédérick Legendre, however, is Quebec Regional Director from the industry group Canadian Wind Energy Association. And Jean-Frédérick is in the Daybreak studio this morning. Good morning. Thanks for coming in.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Can you make the pitch for us and tell people listening why you think it's a good idea for Quebec to add 800 megawatts of wind power? By the way, how many windmills is that? Or wind turbines? How many wind turbines?
It's about between 300 and 400. So the largest wind turbines we have now installed in Quebec are 2.3 megawatts.
Okay, so why do you think this is good for Quebec?
It's a good industrial policy to move forward with more wind energy. This backtrack 10 years ago, the Quebec government decided to go forward with wind. It's it benefits from bipartisan support, both from the Liberals, from the Parti Québécois. It was a Bernard Landry's initiative, and then Jean Charest commissioned more RFPs.
He talked about it, but he didn't actually make the commission, and now it's the PQ government that has...
No, well, Jean Charest actually was responsible for a 2,000 megawatts RFP and a 500 megawatts RFP. That came after the 1,000 megawatts RFP by Premier Landry. Oh. So the PQ is just continuing
in the same line.
In the same line.
But why do we need it? Because in Quebec, we have, because of over the years since the 1970s, so many hydroelectric dams in the province, which is a renewable source of electricity. Cost a lot of money at the outset, but now with age, the price is coming down. So, and we have a surplus of energy as well. So why do we need it? Why do we need wind energy?
Well, the idea is to make sure that enough wind farms are built every year until maybe the next decade, and then wind energy is a 20-year cycle. So after 20 years, the current wind turbines are going to be replaced, refurbished. So the manufacturing jobs will be kept that way, and the industry will go by itself.
So there's a job creation
absolutely
aspect. And how much of these wind turbines are manufactured here in Quebec?
Well, since the start, there's a requirement for 30% of the wind turbine that must be built in the Gaspésie region, and 60% of the cost has to be spent in the province of Quebec. So it created many manufacturing jobs. I mean, Gaspésie has there are more people coming in Gaspésie right now than people leaving Gaspésie, and it's the first in 20 years.
Okay, let's bring Claude Garcia into the conversation. He's an advisor for the Montreal Economic Institute. That's a think tank here in Montreal. But this morning he's in Quebec City. Mr. Garcia, morning to you.
Good morning.
What do you think of the idea of buying 800 more? Jean-Frédérick makes the point that we do have already some of these wind turbines. This is more wind turbines. Is it a good idea?
Well, no, because this electricity is far too expensive, and but the main reason is that Quebec already has huge surplus of electricity, and we've been selling our surpluses to the U.S., but the price at which we have been selling this electricity has come down quite a bit. In 2008, for example, Hydro-Quebec got 9 cents a kilowatt for each kilowatt sold in the U.S. market, but last year only got 4 cents. And the reason for that is that there has been huge finds of gas in the United States, and the price of natural gas has come down significantly, and this is causing electricity prices to come down. And the problem with this policy is that we are producing electricity that we do not need, and therefore we will have to export that excess electricity. and we're only going to get about 4 cents a kilowatt, and it's going to cost us about 14 cents a kilowatt.
And what about the argument that was just made that this has a job creation aspect in Quebec, that the turbines need to be replaced every 20 years, and that 30% of them need to be manufactured here in Quebec?
Well, the problem is you can create jobs by spending money, but I would rather be spending the money on jobs that can be economically justified, on a project can be economically justified. I mean, this idea of building, windmills at the moment is not justified. We do not need the electricity. So, I mean, we have needs in Quebec. Look at the roads in Montreal. We can't afford to fix the road in Montreal, but we're spending money on windmills that we do not need.
Is there not?
This is very bad allocation of resources. I mean, would you run your household like this?
Is there an environmental argument?
No.
Why so emphatically no?
Because 98% of the electricity produced in Quebec is, by Hydro-Quebec is coming from with water.
And what would you say to that, Jean-Frédérick Legendre? Do you not even bother to make the environmental argument here in Quebec because of the existence of the renewable resource that is our hydroelectric network?
Sorry. The environmental argument is very important. We know the emissions that we avoid by working with wind turbines, but more importantly, and environment has also its economic components. In the U.S., large hydro in most of the northeastern states is not considered renewable. So when it comes to exportation, it's an advantage for Hydro-Quebec to have wind energy in its portfolio.
And is it fair?
Yeah, but what he's selling in effect is that we Quebecers are much poorer than Americans, and therefore we should produce electricity at a loss to sell to the American. I mean, this is, this is reverse welfare. Okay, we're poorer than the American, but we are selling them our electricity at a price lower than it costs us to produce it. I mean, we're never going to get rich that way.
Is there a regional development argument that argues in favor of these turbines? Because as I understand it, many of them will be located in the Gas Bay where there is higher unemployment. I think there's also a project right here in the Mohawk territories as well. Claude Garcia, can you see that as an argument?
No, because at the end of the day, when you develop the economy, you have to have, projects have to be self-sustaining. I mean, once the government start interfering in the allocation of resources in the market, it creates all kinds of side effects. And, we've been using that argument, for example, for aluminum plants in the Saguenay. And despite the fact that quite a big number of aluminum plants are located in the Saguenay, the unemployment rate in the Saguenay is higher than the lower St. Lawrence.
And a last word to you, Jean-Frédérick Legendre from the wind industry.
Well, I would reply to Mr. Garcia, like, if we absolutely want high electricity costs, the best way would be to have a short-term planning, and this is what Mr. Garcia is proposing, suggesting. This is structuring for the economy, for Quebec's economy. We know the gas prices are very low right now in the U.S. It probably won't stay that way. The economy of Quebec benefits from wind, and it's a safe, reliable, affordable energy.
Let's turn it over to the listeners and ask you, listening, what you think. Does Quebec need more wind energy? Should we be buying 800 more megawatts? It is going to mean more on your hydro bill. Daybreak.montreal@cbc.ca. That's the email address where you can text us. It's 52s. Claude Garcia, thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Claude Garcia, advisor for the Montreal Economic Institute. That's a think tank here. And Jean-Frédérick Legendre is Quebec Regional Director for Canadian Wind Energy Association. That's an industry group. Thanks very much for coming in.